Today we'll be seeing that death for the Christian is a reunion.
Religion are many, prosperity preachers are many who seek to twist the truth of the Bible for their own destruction. Get ready to hear the truth from the Mr. Kakoulides and the Bible podcast. Genesis to Revelation, and Jesus Christ is the key that unfolds it all. Listen as he explains parables, miracles, history, and more of the Bible.
And as we do our program today, we're going to be looking at the first 5 books of the Bible. And we see that in Genesis, we see this in Genesis 25:17, verse 8 of 25, 49, verse 33, 35, verse 29, Numbers 20, 24, Deuteronomy 32, 48 to 50, and Deuteronomy 34, 5 to 6. We see the phrase, gather to his people. And let's just read some of these verses, or read them all, depending on the time we have. Then Abraham breathed his last and died in a good old age, an old man full of years, and was gathered to his people. That's Genesis 25, verse 8. And in verse 17, it says this: These were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137, and he breathed his last and was gathered to his people. Now, the thing about Abraham, where did his dad die? You can read where his dad died in Genesis 12. Was it Genesis 12? Yeah. He died in Haran. That's Genesis 11. Genesis 11 verses 32, actually. Genesis 11 verse 32. So the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. And his dad, where did he die? He died in Ur of the Chaldeans. So, and what does it mean that he was gathered to his people? Was he gathered to burial? No. It means that he was united to those who died before him, which would include his parents, his grandparents. The same thing with Ishmael, his dad. He was united with his dad. You see this as well with Moses. Who buried Moses? It was God. So when it says that he was gathered to his people, it means he was gathered to those who died before him. You see a reunion at death. The Bible is very clear of that. A reunion with family members, loved ones, those who died in Christ before you. This is for the believer. This is not for those who are unbelievers. They'll die and they'll go to hell. If we could just go to 1 Samuel, we see something that Samuel says to King Saul in 1 Samuel 29, verse 19. What does Samuel says to Saul? Samuel is dead, and who's talking is his soul is talking through the witch, through the medium. God allowed it. And what does Samuel says? If this is 1 Samuel 28. It's 1 Samuel 28. I thought it was 29. 1 Samuel 28, verse 19, it says, Moreover, the Lord, this is Samuel speaking, moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines. And tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. Well, Samuel's dead, so what does it mean? You will be united with me. You're going to be where I am, in Shiloh. Selah, not Shiloh. Shiloh is a totally different place. Selah, you'll be in the place of the dead. And David says something like that as well. When his son died, the son he had with Bathsheba, when he died, what did David said? This is found in 2 Samuel 12. 2 Samuel 12:23. What does it say? David says, but now that he, his son, is dead, why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. This clearly shows that the dead does not come to the human. God allowed it in 1 Samuel, but that's not something that is usually allowed. What do we see also in the case of the rich man and Lazarus in Luke 16? We see the rich man dies and he goes to Hades, he goes to hell. But what happens to Lazarus, who dies, the poor man? He gets taken to where Abraham is, and the rich man sees him with his head on Abraham's chest. That's consolation. That's why people call it Abraham's bosom. So it was that the beggar died, that's 1622, and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And being in torments in Hades, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. I think a better translation, on his bosom. His head on his bosom. Anyway, so we see the soul of the Christian will be with those who were before him. Well, will I be able to recognize those who died before me? Yes, you would. A good example of this is found in Matthew 17, where Moses and Elijah appears in the Mount of Transfiguration. And Peter knew that it was Moses and Elijah. No one told Peter, hey, this is Moses and Elijah. Peter knew who Moses and Elijah were in Matthew 17. It was God who's going to allow us to recognize those who died before us. And there is a reunion. It's not just with our dead loved ones who are in Christ and with those ancient ones in the Bible, but it's also with Christ the reunion is. Because the moment the Christian dies, he is with Christ. 2 Corinthians 5 is clear on that. Philippians 1:21-23 as well is clear on that. And in Luke 23, What does Jesus tells the rich man? Not the rich man, the thief. What does Jesus tells the thief in Luke 23? Jesus tells the thief, today you will be with me in paradise. And where is Jesus? He is in heaven with the Father. Mark 16 actually says that. It's very clear on that Jesus is with the Father. But for Jesus to say, today you will be with me in paradise, he was saying, you're going to be with me in heaven. 2 Corinthians 12 tells us that paradise is where God is at. And Jesus is in heaven. Mark 16:19. So then after the Lord has spoken to them, he was received up into heaven and sat down at the right hand of God. There's no such thing as soul sleep. The body is what sleep. And I think we covered that in our last episode when we talked about soul sleep. That is not a biblical doctrine. It is the body that sleeps and not the soul. Now, a reunion with Christ, a reunion with loved ones, that is what we should expect. It's an amazing thing to be united with those that we love most, and especially Jesus. Let's read 2 Corinthians 5. For we know that if our earthly house, this tent, is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this we groan earnestly, desiring to be clothed with our habitation, which is from heaven. If indeed, having been clothed, we shall not be found naked. For we who are in this tent groan, being burdened, not because we want to be unclothed, but further clothed, that mortality may be swallowed up by life. Now he who has prepared us for this very thing is God, who has given us the Spirit as a guarantee. So we are always confident, knowing that while we are at home in the body, we're absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith and not by sight. But we are confident, yes, well pleased, rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. Be absent from this body is to be present with the Lord. Philippians 1 is very clear as well on this. I want to read this verse before we finish our podcast. We only have 15 minutes of podcast. For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. Philippians 1:21-23. But if I live on the flesh, this will mean fruit for my labor. Yet what shall I choose? I cannot tell, for I am hard pressed between the two, having a desire to depart and to be with Christ, which is far greater. Notice that to depart is to be with Christ. And where Christ is, he's in heaven. We can also see this in Acts chapter 7. Stephen says, I see the heavens open and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of the Father. Jesus was standing, ready to receive.
In a world where people are tired of false religion and teacher who confirm it, let's listen to Mr. Kakoulides and the Bible podcast. Genesis to Revelation, and Jesus Christ is the key that holds it all. Listen as he explains parables, miracles, history, and more of the Bible. Of the Bible. Genesis to Revelation, and Jesus Christ as the key that unfolds it all. Listen as he explains parables, miracles, history, and more of the Bible. Of the Bible.